Hi everyone, this is MAPS Group Coaching, and right now we're experiencing a little bit of technical difficulty, so we will be right with you. Please hold. Hey there, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Can everybody else hear us? If anybody could answer in the questions box, that would be greatly appreciated. Perfect.
She presented.
Yeah, if you guys can hear us, can someone in the questions box let us know so, because we're not seeing that. Or even if you can push the button that says raise your hand, we'll see that you're raising your hand. Can you guys let us know if you can hear us? All right, you guys, so it looks like you guys can hear us. I'm not able to see your questions, but keep putting them in there. They can see them at MAPS, and at the end, they're just going to read off whatever questions you guys have. So let's get going. First of all, thank you for the grace in the small delay, and I appreciate you being here with us today. My name is Deana Watson, and I'm actually a MAPS coach for mastery and as well as group coaching, and have a Facebook social media group coaching program on the MAPS platform. So today we're going to do a little bit of an intro to that, but make sure that you guys get value out of this. And my goal here today is that you can all walk away from this completely free webinar with something you can put into your business or into your knowledge arsenal to increase your business on social media. So I want to give you guys a really quick little introduction to who I am. My name is, like I said, Dina. I'm an agent. I have a top team in in our market center and also in our region in the Carolinas. My husband's a Green Beret soldier, and why that matters is because I like to joke that we are a team of all-in 1%ers, where no matter what we do, we go all in with it. I have sold 50 homes the first year I had this approach, which is what I'm teaching in this course, completely with zero money spent. In the first 8 months, I moved to a new market. So everything I'm going to talk to you about is actually things that I've done myself and things that we are still doing with my team to make sure that we are able to be superior on Facebook to anyone in our marketplace. I also am a boy mom. I have a little kid who's 2.5 years old and an avid dog lover. So not that any of that matters, but I wanted to let you know who you're talking to. During the duration of not only this webinar, but of the actual course itself, if you guys choose to go on to the paid version of this class, you will be learning things that I would consider best practices on social media. We're also going to talk a lot about things to do while building your profiles and while building out your influence online, things to stay away from and things to consider. So if you guys have any questions about anything that we're going over today, like I said, make sure you're putting them in the questions box. And as long as they at MAPS can see them, they will read them off at the end. I have broken this down for this particular webinar into a step-by-step type of approach so that you guys know exactly what you could be doing all along the way in sequential order. So one thing that a lot of people don't think about when they first set out to do this whole Facebook real estate sales thing is branding. And make no mistake, you guys, branding is the most important thing you can start with. So if you're sitting here and you're thinking to yourself, man, I really want to get X amount of leads and all of these things, I think you're missing the boat in the beginning. The thing you should absolutely consider starting with is, who are you? What is your brand, and why is having a brand important in the long run? So I want to make sure that we don't put the cart before the horse, which is why branding is up top. And as you can see, branding can be different things to different people. But overall, the definition of branding is promoting a particular product or service. You could be considered a product or service in real estate by means of advertising. It's also a marketing practice in which a company creates a name, symbol, and a logo or design that makes the company identifiable to other people. And that's what is important in our business. You want to make sure that as more and more realtors wake up to the concept of building their business online, that you are identifiable. You're not just one of those people posting listings. You're not just one of those people commenting on Facebook. You're not like everyone else. And the only way to do that is to brand yourself. And I want you to think about a couple of things. One, do we call them Q-tips or do we call them cotton swabs? And these are some examples of branding at a high level. I don't know about you, but no matter the brand name on the top of the box of cotton swabs, I always call it a Q-tip. Why? Because branding at its finest tells me it's a Q-tip. Same thing. Do I ask for a facial tissue or do I say, give me a Kleenex? Kleenex is a brand, you guys, a brand of facial tissue, just like Q-tip is a brand of cotton swab. Now, it could be Coke, Pepsi, or is it soda? Soda is everything else. Coke is actually a brand. Pepsi is actually a brand. Soda is not. But most people call soda, unless you live in certain parts of the country, we call soda or pop a Coke or Pepsi, and Coke and Pepsi are branded. So here's a little fun fact. If you're at a drive-through somewhere or if you're at a restaurant and you ask for a Coke and they hand you a Pepsi, that company can actually get in a lot of trouble for that because it's a violation of the brand. You asked for a brand and they said, yep, we have that. And then they passed off a Pepsi saying it's a Coke, or the other way around. So that's an interesting fun fact about branding that I didn't know until researching it for some of the courses we've done. Another one at its finest is Google it. A lot of us say, I don't know, I'll Google it. Well, are we actually going to Google and Googling something, or are we just searching for it? I tell people in my life that have nothing, they're not on their phone, they're not on their computer, and I tell them, I don't know, go Google it. I'm not actually wanting them to go on the computer and search for it. That would kind of be like back in the day, I don't know, encyclopedia it. We didn't say those things. But as we're getting more specific in branding, I want you guys to think really quickly. When someone thinks about real estate, like we think about facial Kleenex or facial tissues or cotton swabs, how do you become the Kleenex or the Q-tip? This sounds silly, but how do you become the Kleenex or the Q-tip of your market? When everyone thinks of real estate, they may not know why, but they think of you. I want you to think about that for a second. What would it take? And I want you to write it down or pop it in the questions box if you want, but just keep in mind I can't see that on my end right now. What would that look like? If no matter who thought about real estate, they thought about you. Now, next, I want you to answer the question, what would you have to do in the next 24 hours to make sure that that could work? Make sure that you are on the path in the next 24 hours to that being your reality for next year. We're at you guys are joining me at a really cool time. We are at the last couple of weeks of 2019. You guys were the last couple of weeks of this decade. And a lot of people wait until January to start things. So your immediate is next year. Your immediate massive action is happening at the right time. So think about what that would look like. As you're doing so, I want to provide you a couple of things to check off your list. These are by definition components of what make up a great brand. If you are a realtor, make no mistake about it, you are a brand, whether you know it or not, whether you promote it or not. You are a brand, you are a product. You're selling something. You're not necessarily selling a product, you are the product that you are selling. So you should have a brand. First of all, do you have an identifiable logo? Now, KW has an identifiable logo, and your market center probably does as well, but do you have one? If you're at Keller Williams, one of my favorite things about this company is that they allow us to be who we want to be as business owners within the parameters that they have allowed for us to create within. You guys, a lot of companies don't have this conversation around brand because their agents are not allowed to brand themselves. They don't have the conversation about these things. So it's really cool that we get to. So do you have an identifiable logo outside of Keller Williams, or either joining the Keller Williams logo that you can promote to the public? Do you have identifiable colors? And yeah, you can use the red and black. Keller Williams also gives us a leeway on the ability to create our own brand colors. Now, I want to make sure I'm clear on something. Your market centers are all independently owned and operated. So we all have to work within the confines of the KWRI standard. And we all have to make sure that when we're doing these things, that your market centers are allowing them as well. I'll give you an example. At KWRI, the preferred amount of red is around 33%, I believe. And I can look this up. It's in the My KW website. Now, certain market centers, though, that I have come across require, Keller Williams site says preferred. Certain market centers require it, and it says so in their handbooks. So make sure that as you're doing this, I don't want you guys to go and spend money branding yourself before you check those things, okay? The next thing a great brand has is a clear brand promise. What is that brand promising to give you? What does Apple promise to deliver to every iPhone or MacBook Pro user? What is every IBM user back in the day promised by IBM? What are you promised when you go into Whole Foods? That you find great foods with great ingredients, that there's not a lot of processing. So people go to certain brands because of their brand promise. So when we get off of here, I want you in the next 10 minutes to write down, or even right now, what do you promise the public when they use you? What's your brand promise? The other side of that is you need to make sure that you have a defined target market. So make sure that you are defining specifically who you want to work with. Now, I just taught a version of this in my market center, and one of the questions the gentleman had was, well, we're in a military market, so I want to work with the military. And I was like, that's perfect. So does everybody else. You know who I want to work with? And he said, who? And I was like, I want to work with special operators. I want to work with other special forces families and special ops community people, because that's who I am. That's my family. That's our life and our story. So think about how micro you can go with whatever your target is. The more specific and the smaller you can get, when you get ready to share your promise and your target message, you will resonate with them much higher level than you will if you don't know. The next thing, a component of a great brand, is clear design consistency throughout all. So do you have the same design on your header of your letterhead as you do on the return envelope stamps that you have on your envelopes that you mail out? Is your logo and your font the same there as it is on your email signature? Is your email signature, colors, and logo the same as it is on your Facebook header, your banner up there? Do you have all the same branding and stuff on Instagram? When you're messaging someone off your phone, think about where all people are interacting with you, and a clear design consistency is a component of a great brand. Next, great brands have a strategy on how they will reach the target audience. This one is where a lot of people get tripped up because a logo and colors are fun. A brand promise is lofty and awesome. And design consistency, it's hard, but it's kind of cool to deal with. Where people get tripped up is they don't have a strategy. So I want you to think about a couple of strategies that you might have to make sure that that message that you have in your mind gets to people in real life. What are you going to do to make sure that people know that you should be their realtor of choice? And I want you to write it down, all of these things. If you're just listening to this while you're driving in your car, I want you to go back and listen to it again when you're seated, and you can answer all these questions. Because I know back a while ago, I've heard from multiple people and instructors and trainers that those of us who do something with the information we learn within 24 hours have a much higher likelihood of executing on it than those of us who don't implement something in 24 hours. So I want you all to commit to go back and answering all those questions if you didn't answer them with me. Now, part of branding is also color, and I want to share something really cool with you. And in the full version of this program, I will break down for you what each color says to the human brain when they see it. And for sake of time right now, I'm just going to go into the idea of it, and I want you to research it when we get done. There's this thing called the psychology of color. And basically, colors, in the simplest of terms, are how our brain perceives the light that are reflecting off of different objects around us. Different light wavelengths get projected as different colors when they come through the light spectrum. Each color actually coerces a certain set of emotions in our brains. It's hardwired in all of us. This is not something we can turn off. It's something that's unconscious or something that we don't know we're doing. Being backed by research, a product's color can influence a customer's purchasing decision by anywhere from 60 to 80%. Now, here's why the psychology of color matters in another way. Let's say that you've defined your target audience is men, specifically men, because maybe in your marketplace, like in mine, we're a military community, mostly dominated by males, and males are the ones here who often have purchasing power. They're the ones who have the VA loan and the other types of abilities to buy. And so let's say that my target market was men, and I had never thought about that, but I love the color pink. You hear where I'm going with this. If your target audience is not in alignment with the types of colors you choose, you may not be sending the right message subconsciously to people, and they just don't know why they're not clicking with you. They're just not. So as you're doing this, you may find, if you're answering these questions or if you choose to go through the full course on this, you may find that what you've done so far is mismatched. And you know what? That's perfect, because at least you know. And now you can do something with it. Step 2 of all of this is going to be defining your audience and what you're saying to them. So I want you to think of a couple things. How old are the people that you're wanting to work with? Are you wanting to work with baby boomers? Are you wanting to work with millennials? Are you wanting to work with people who are downsizing? Write it down. Write all of this down. What are they interested in? Your target audience or your target market, what are their interests? What's their socioeconomic status? What type of jobs do they have? And where are they working? Now, all of this matters later, and I can share with you a little bit more in depth if you want to off of this webinar, but all of these things play into your audience, which plays into your message. Because I don't know about you, but if I'm not very polished and my audience is doctors and attorneys, I might not be their brand of choice. Think about it. Make sure that you have congruency here, because in order to be able to effectively deliver your message on social media, you really need to know who you're talking to and what they would want you to say. The more you can define who your clientele is, the higher your engagement will be when you're posting things on social media, okay? The whole goal here is not just to post things. Some of you will post just for sake of posting, and I applaud you for actually posting. However, if you want to sell real estate on social media, you need engagement and you need value to be delivered to people who actually want to know what you have to say. So I take a minute for that, because I think that a lot of times we get caught up in this, I got to post 12 times a day and I got to post at this time and this time. No, you don't. You just have to post at certain times and say certain things that people actually want to talk to you about. You don't have to just sling things out there. That's not the approach here. So I want you to think about who's your audience, because once you know that, we can be able to build out ads with you, and I will show in the full program specifically how to do that. For time's sake here, I can't, but I want to make sure that you know before going into that, or even if you don't, that you still should be talking to certain people and defining them. I want to take a time out for a minute because it's that time of year, right? It's almost, we just came out of election season. We'll be going into it again. There's a lot going on in the news about all kinds of things. And I want to point out that there's something called a hot button issue. And there's also something called a micro, I call it a niche. Some people call it a niche. That's okay. It's all the same. Hot button issues are going to include things that will strictly polarize about 50% of the people, because half of the people will agree with you, half of them will not. And so if you're not willing to go all in with one of these and have this be your audience, you need to stay as much away from it as you can. So when you're on Facebook, if you aren't specifically wanting to target certain political parties and you only want to work with them, stay away from talking about politics much and sharing your opinion. If you don't want to ostracize or alienate people of a certain religion, sexual orientation, or otherwise, please stop talking about it. Because what you're doing is about 50% of these topics that people are passionate about 50% of these people will agree with you. The other 50% will either unfollow or unfriend you because they're tired of seeing what you have to say because it doesn't match up with what they want. Now, a lot of people will say, well, who cares? It's what I have to say. You guys are a business. I guarantee you that Steve Jobs or the CEO of Coca-Cola or the CEO of Amazon was not, while they were building their business, on there preaching to the pulpit or the choir about what they believed in so strongly that they were alienating people. Now, here's the flip side to that. I was listening to a podcast the other day, actually it was about a month or two ago, and this lady said, you know what, I decided to stop running from who I was. And she was very, very specifically Republican, very deeply rooted in that, and also very pro-gun. Two things that are very polarizing to people, and I want you to stay with me and listen. The person interviewing her said, well, everyone tells us not to talk about these things because they ostracize people. And he said, so what happened to your business? Did it decline? And she said, no, it actually almost doubled. Because once I was so strong in telling people what I believed in, and I didn't care if I lost the other section of the audience, I actually attracted more people to me because they believed so strongly in what I believe in. So if you're willing to take that approach, these things on the screen, politics, religion, sexual orientation, human welfare topics like abortion, gun control, and feminism, if you're willing to go all in on your stance, that's a micro niche. If you're not, it's a hot button and you stay away from it, okay? These are just best practices. Next, we're going to talk about defining your message. Every time you post anything on social media, you are defining who you are as a person, a human being, and your brand, most importantly, for your pocketbook. A few quick tips real quick to make sure that you're portraying the right message. Talk about what you believe and your core values. Don't talk about what you want to rant about. Talk about who you are as a human being. Avoid some of the old school sales tactics and provide value, telling people to call you today or for the best price, text this number. People are tired of that. They want you to provide them value before they'll invest in you. Clearly speak about your goals. I don't know about you, but we did not hit our goal this year on the team. And what we are going to do today is make a post that says how short we are. Hey, we're 2 closings short of our goal and we really need your help. People want to help you. There's nothing weak about telling people that you have goals and that you're not hitting them and you need their help. Most importantly, always be positive on your social media feed, upbeat, and stay away from drama, because you have people watching you at all times and you never, 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 ever know what their stances are until you upset them or until they agree with you, and that's a 50-50 shot. Step number 3, we're going to talk about how do you market yourself on social media to potentially get business. Placing ads is one approach, and during the duration of the program, if you take the full program, we're going to learn how and where to place ads, how to use new age digital tactics or twists on things like door knocking and open house and just listed and just sold. And we're also going to talk about how to encompass all of this with finding buyer and seller lead gen. For particular sake of today's webinar, one of the things that I will tell you all that has just happened in the last quarter is that before, whenever we were on Facebook, we could post things down to a mile radius. So people were creating ads. I was as well, for neighborhoods. They were creating ads for school systems. And whenever you post the ad, you could boost it or do your ads manager down to a mile, meaning as close as possible to that particular house as you could. And we were doing just listed and just sold, etc. Facebook has now changed the rules as of, I believe, September. And now that you've identified yourself as a real estate service or a home ad, you now can't place an ad any less than 15 miles wide. Now, I don't know about where you live, but 15 miles from where I live is a completely different type of world. It's a completely different market, different message, different type of people live out there, everything. So one of the things that we'll be talking about in the full program are some tips and tricks on how to get around that. But I do want those of you, for the sake of this webinar, to know that that's a thing. We're also going to be talking a lot about lead ads versus boosted posts. And here are some tips or tactics about what's the difference. A boosted post is the most basic type of advertising you can possibly find on Facebook. It's also the easiest. It's also usually a big waste of money. So the goal of a boosted ad is basically just to create visibility, and you're paying your way for Facebook to show more of the people you already know the ad you posted. It's also going to help gain engagement sometimes from the people that you've paid to put it in front of. That's very few and far between anymore, though. Lead ads go through your ads manager, and they're also a more customized way of marketing on Facebook. It does require that you have some ads manager, some knowledge of how to place ads, market yourself properly, and that you do load a debit or credit card on your Facebook page. Now, I will tell you guys, there's a cap. So some of you are afraid, oh my gosh, what if I got out of hand? You can set a limit where you don't spend any more than a certain amount of money. Lead ads also offer a variety of options with different goals for how to place the marketing message in front of the public. So you can do things like promote your events, i.e. open houses or networking events you have, get video views, help share from brand awareness, and offer something. So if you're doing a free CMA or whatever your ad or your offer is at that moment, you can do that through a lead ad as well. Here are some of the things that I found to be interesting and very useful. Best and worst times to post. Now, this is not my opinion. This is actually researched information that I got not too long ago on when is the national best and worst times to post. So I will tell you that in your own market, you need to be knowledgeable about when you think people are on Facebook, because this might not apply to you. For example, in a military market, people usually go to work earlier because they have physical training or PT or whatever early, and then they come home and they go to work again around 9. Now, if you're in a more CEO or corporate environment, your audience might not go to work until 9 o'clock. So for us, posting at 8 a.m. is not going to work because people aren't looking at it. But for you, it might be right before they get to work. So just use your emotional intelligence with this. Overall, nationally though, weekdays between 1 and 4 p.m. get the highest click-through rating. So you'll have the highest clicks on your posts and your ads between 1 and 4 p.m. on the weekdays. The overall peak time throughout the week though is Wednesday at 3. So think about, if you're going to go into this and wanting to dominate the online space, you have to be strategic and specific, and this will help you do that. The worst times to post are though on the weekends before 8 a.m. because everyone's asleep, or after 8 p.m. because people are either working on getting in bed, they're out with their friends, they're out with family, or they're just watching a movie at home or doing something else. So think about weekends between 8 and 8 are your best chances. One of the last things I want to throw out there, and a lot of people have asked me before, well, you sold 50 homes on Facebook in a year. How much money did you spend? And my answer is none. I actually had the largest tax bill of my life that year because I had no write-offs. I did not do it on a business page. So what in my market center and even in our program, one of the most common questions I get asked is about this topic: groups versus business pages versus your personal page. Where do you post what? And I'm going to give you the synopsis. We'll dig into it in the full program if you choose to join, and we can go through that. But the synopsis right now is, if your goal as a realtor is to build relationships and have conversations with people, doing so on a business page is not the right approach. Your business page, think about it more like a bus bench or a billboard. It's where someone is going to put out their advertising. It's where someone's going to share information. A group A Facebook group, whether you create one or you're a part of one, is built for community. It's built for engagement. It's built for conversation. So specifically where I sold all these homes was not through a business page and placing ads. It was through getting to know people online and bringing that relationship into the real world by creating groups around housing, creating groups in my personal neighborhood, and then having people get together. Think about it. They're still people. You can go online and sell homes entirely through Facebook if you have the right approach. You're not going to do that at a high level, specifically through business pages, unless you're spending a lot of money to get your stuff out there. So we're going to be rounding out in just a second. I want to talk to you guys about the upcoming class if you actually want to join. If not, I want you to post at least one thing that you got out of this particular webinar that you might not have known coming into it. And then at the end, I will have them read off any questions that we have. But I'm going to share with you really quickly. The program is actually called 50 Facebook Sales in 50 Weeks. It is through MAPS Group Coaching. And it is something that will be launching for us here pretty soon. It's an 8-week program, 1 week every single week. Unless we have an event, then we'll skip the event week, which that's all on the website. We're going to walk through different strategies, tools, success skills, and things like that to build not only your social media brand, but to also turn that into a booming source of business for you. It's more of a step-by-step approach. We're going to walk through things that build on each other. So we're going to start with the foundations and build up to things like placing ads and things like retargeting and all of that. So it is a step-by-step foundational course in terms of foundation all the way to more advanced topics and things like that. So it should be something for everyone. It's not targeted for people who have teams. I've had that asked before. We have people who have teams in there, but it's not specifically for only people with teams. We're also going to talk about topics ranging from the colors that you choose in your brand to how to place ads effectively, how to evaluate what you're doing, and just learn different tactics and tips and things throughout the way on how to get people to engage with you. We're also going to, every single week, there will be an additional live training. So one of the additional perks to being in the course is that no matter how long ago you were ever in there, you will be allowed to stay in our closed private Facebook group forever. So if you want to continue to get information from me or information from the people who've taken the class or different ideas or tactics, you can stay in the Facebook group forever that we add you to once you join the course. And then any upcoming classes, you still can watch the lives and participate. We also have one additional live training inside that group every week with myself. There will also be some interviews with other social influencers in our company inside that group throughout the duration of the course. And that's just an additional thank you for being in there, right? A little bit of the details of the actual program. It's going to start, that says the 2nd, it's actually going to start January 7th. That was the typo on my end, I'm sorry. So January 7th, 2020, and the class will be at 1:30 Eastern time for 8 weeks. If you sold only one, I want you to do a little bit of math, and then I want you to put the number in the questions box. Let's say that you sold one house with something that you learned from this program. What is the average commission price of one home? A lot of people get tied up in the 50. You guys, that's not to say you have to sell 50. If you don't sell any right now and your goal is to sell 2, how much return on your $198 investment would you get from selling 2 homes from something you learned in this program for 8 weeks? I will tell you all of these webinars are recorded. And so if you have to miss a week, that's okay. You can go back into the recording. They're available 24 hours later. Go back into that recording and listen to it whenever you need to. All of recordings are available for you for up to 2 months after the program ends. We have had people in the program who maybe got sick for a couple weeks and they were out, they needed to catch up. That's okay too. So I'm going to stop real quick because I want to be able to answer a few of your questions. We have about 5 more minutes here, so I want to make sure I get some of these answered. If I don't get to your question or if I don't answer it in a way which you understand, please reach out to me on Facebook and I can help you out there. Alrighty. So if there are any questions, can you guys go ahead and read them off to me? Do we have any? I don't know if they can hear you, but
No questions yet. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. All right, cool.
Okay.
So we'll give you guys a few more seconds, and if something isn't popped in there in about a minute or so, we'll go ahead and hop off here. If you want to join the full program, you can go to Maps Group Coaching, the website, and then there you'll be able to select 50 Facebook sales in 50 weeks. I will also email the link out to everyone who is on the webinar in case you guys do want to join the full program starting on the 7th. Cool. Looks like we don't have any questions, so you guys have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday, and I hope to see all of you on the 7th of January. Have a good one, everybody.